Thank you. We're good to go.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. My name is Christopher Wynn. I'm an attorney with Aberrant Law, and between Racy Rodney and I, we represent Norhan Askar, and she is the passenger who was in the vehicle with Winston Smith at the time he was shot.
My name is Racy Rodney with McElstrom Fargione Law Office, and we're here to share her statement.
Our client would like to share a story, which starts with plans for a lunch date with Winston Smith. They met through mutual friends, had known each other for over 6 months, and had been dating for several weeks. Mr. Smith met her at another parking lot so she would not have to pay for parking when they went to Stella's. Mr. Smith changed his shirt because it was hot and his shirt was sweaty. They drove to the top of a ramp, walked downstairs, had lunch, laughed, had a couple of drinks, and enjoyed each other's company. They walked back to the car, entered the car, and were suddenly surrounded by unmarked cars and people with guns. These people were dressed in neither sheriff nor peace officer uniforms. They yelled commands and did not announce themselves as law enforcement of any kind. While yelling commands for them to put their hands up, multiple armed people targeted their weapons upon Miss Oscar and Mr. Smith. Our client complied with their commands, scared for her life. Mr. Smith had a mobile device and began to Facebook Live. As he raised his phone, all Miss Oscar could hear was gunfire and saw Mr. Smith's body slump over. After the barrage of bullets, they pulled her out of the car, handcuffed her, and placed her into the back of an unmarked car. She remained handcuffed until an ambulance arrived to provide her medical attention. An officer later asked her how her date was. Besides the trauma of having her lunch date shot to death while seated immediately next to her, our client was sprayed with broken glass shot out by law enforcement. Glass that even today she is taking out of her skin. Our client continues to heal. She is experiencing a roller coaster of emotions related to this case, and even being in a car brings significant anxiety. Our client never saw a gun in the car, and to be clear, she never saw Winston Smith in possession of a gun. She was unaware of the contents of his music videos on social media posts social media posts containing his music videos until after the events of June 3rd.
I just want to reiterate, since our previous statement is that Ms. Oscar wants her or greatly values her privacy, and so we ask the public again to reinforce that. The agencies involved in the killing of Winston Smith and our elected officials have shown zero interest or have demonstrated no political appetite for requiring transparency or accountability. Furthermore, the BCA claims that they cannot release the names of the sheriff's deputies involved as they were undercover officers. Law enforcement has a duty to announce themselves, and the selection of undercover officers to execute a warrant, knowing that they're required to announce themselves, is a clear display of incompetence. The BCA has informed us that they also failed to take gunshot residue tests from the body of Mr. Smith. And the body of Mr. Smith was washed by the Hennepin County Medical Examiner before these tests were conducted. This evidence would assist in figuring out whether Mr. Smith had a gun or not. It would reinforce the story that Ms. Oscar is telling us today and telling the public today. Given the public's significant investment of resources and money, training, equipment, and policy creation to implement body-worn cameras into law enforcement, the effort to circumvent these transparency and accountability measures is an affront to the rule of law and the work of so many have put forward in their law enforcement agencies. We ask the public to join us in demanding better and holding law enforcement to a higher standard, because all Minnesotans deserve to have trust and confidence in the law enforcement agencies and agents. We will be bringing a lawsuit on behalf of our client, and the underlying cause of the action is a violation of her civil rights. Thank you very much, and we'll stand for questions if anyone has any. The BCA told us that no gunshot residue tests were conducted. So a gunshot residue on his hands or wrists would have been evidence of whether there was a gunfire at all, and those tests were not conducted.
What was your reaction when you learned there were no body cams used at all? Your client's reaction?
Disappointment, shock, based on the significance of the trauma and being shot at or shot in the direction of and being sprayed by glass. It's safe to say that our client's in shock, and to find out that there was no evidence of video from body-worn cameras from what were supposed to be sheriff's deputies that had policies requiring them to wear body-worn cameras, it's surprising. And she is still looking to understand how it is that they were able to circumvent sheriff office policies for wearing body-worn cameras. I think the evidence has borne out that the BCA has changed their story multiple times in the process of this case and in the process of the investigation. Some of the facts that they've let out have only served their interests, and that's concerning. I think that what's more important is that the public be allowed to know the truth. And so originally they said that there were reports that were put out that Mr. Smith was wanted for murder. Yeah, they later stated that Mr. Smith shot at law enforcement first. Based on the fact that Ms. Askar had suffered significant injuries from shattered glass, I think the facts bear out that some of the statements that are being made by our agencies aren't physically possible. The defendants in the lawsuit will be all of the agencies that have been involved in this incident. All of the agencies involved. Yes, miss.
We have yet to uncover the Facebook Live video.
Were there any cameras up on the ramp that you guys know of? Any other video anywhere?
We have not seen any video from the ramp itself. However, we do have other witnesses who were right across the street and were firsthand witnesses to the incident in question. She does not recall the exact number of shots, no.
We are only stating what our client's statement is at this time, so I don't think I can answer your question. Sir?
I'm sorry, did you ask to spell our client's name? Our client's name is spelled Norhannaskar, and it is pronounced Norhan Askar.
I think we got the spelling of your gentleman's name. Would you mind giving us your spelling one more time?
Sure. Christopher Wynn, Nguyen.
And my name is Racy Rodney, Racey. Last name is Rodney, Rodney.
Can you tell us the timeline moving forward? What happens next?
The next thing that we'll do is initiate our lawsuit against the agencies that are involved, and we'll hopefully do that soon. We have not received a statement from her. We will or can supplement that once we serve our complaint, and we can send it to the media relatively soon. I don't have an exact timeline.
Thank you.
Well, we wanted to respond. We thank the attorneys for providing a brief update to us. I'd like to start us off with having Nikema Levy Armstrong start us off.
Good afternoon. I'm Nikema Levy Armstrong, civil rights attorney, activist, founder of the Racial Justice Network. What we have heard here today from the attorneys who are representing the witness is highly disturbing, but sadly it does not come as a surprise. We have raised concerns in the months and years regarding the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. We have also talked about our concerns with regard to the U.S. Marshals, and we still have not received answers. We have tried to get word to President Joe Biden that the folks in this community are calling for the immediate termination of Ramona Doman, who is the head of the U.S. Marshal Service for the District of Minnesota. There should be a much concern from people in our community to see how these agencies participated as part of this federal task force through the U.S. Marshal Service without body camera footage, without proper protocols, without adequate accountability. And then, after the killing of Winston Smith, and after we all raised concerns about this public execution, we saw those law enforcement agencies run from their responsibility. They have still failed to release the names of the Ramsey County Sheriff's Deputy and the Hennepin County Sheriff's Deputy who participated in the slaughter of Winston Smith. If those agencies are no longer participating in the U.S. Marshals program, then there is nothing under the law that prohibits the sheriff's deputies for Ramsey County, Bob Fletcher, and the deputy, the Hennepin County Sheriff for Hennepin County, to release that information immediately. The public has a right to know. We have called on Governor Walz to establish an office of the Independent Special Prosecutor to investigate killings at the hands of the police. He has the power under his executive authority to do so. We are asking him to act swiftly because we cannot trust the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension to investigate any killings involving the police in the state of Minnesota. Beyond that, some of the members of the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension participated in the U.S. Marshals Task Force, which we believe is a conflict of interest. Additionally, Ramona Doman hired Drew Evans, who is the superintendent for the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. So he is, in effect, investigating his former boss, which again is a conflict of interest, which should disqualify the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. We want answers in this case. We demand accountability in this case. We demand transparency in this case. That is the least of what should happen in the community in which George Floyd and many other stolen lives have been taken at the hands of police. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikema. I just wanted to add to that. Sadly, today we learned from the witness that Winston Smith was killed like many black, brown, indigenous men have been killed and women in this country. When they interact with law enforcement, their hands become weapons, their cell phones become weapons, their wallets become weapons, and no one have been able to hold these police officers accountable. But that has to change. This particular witness, who is the one person who was there, who saw everything that happened, who's still grieving and dealing with the trauma that she will have to bear for the rest of her life to see a black man, unarmed black man, killed in her own car, or in the car that she was with. This unfortunate but a reality of a case of Winston Smith is a reminder that we have for far too long have asked for transparency and accountability. And you can tell when they are lying, you can tell when they are trying to make up something. But in this case, they didn't even make up anything. They're refusing to acknowledge the death of Winston Smith. They're refusing to provide information to the community and the media. They're refusing to recognize the existence and the humanity of Winston Smith and his family. It is shame on the state. It is shame on this country. It is shame on Democrats, the Biden administration, and the Walz administration for failing black lives. Just yesterday, the state of Minnesota failed to protect black lives and began to protect police. And that is the reality that we live in today. Winston Smith should have been here with us, but he was gunned down by officers who did not report who they were, who were in unmarked cars, who refused to turn on cameras because they were out hunting. They were out hunting and they wanted to kill a black man, and they killed a black man, Winston Smith, in Uptown. The community is tired. We are tired of the silence. We are tired of the inaction by the state, by the federal actors, and it is time for them to continue. It's time for them to stand up and give us justice. We have been demanding for that since the killing of George Floyd, but even far before that. But for the first time, the public has now joined. A large percent of the public have now joined this call for transparency and accountability, and we have yet to see that. And with Winston Smith's case, every day now we are learning that this is a cover-up. They are hiding, they are making cover-up, and that is why not only these other jurisdictions pulled out, but Mona has yet to respond to the public. And we continue to demand the Biden administration to fire her, to immediately terminate her, and also to immediately begin an independent investigation outside of the state of Minnesota. Because as Nikema just mentioned, not only there's conflict of interest, but we also do not have any faith in the Walz administration, nor do we have any faith in the BCA. And so we stand with the Winston family. We stand with this young, courageous witness who saw the horrific attack and murder of a black man. We ask the community in this time to be in support of her and to respect her privacy, to recognize that we know that individuals in the police departments, in the white supremacy, may come after this witness. We've seen that happen before. So we ask the community members that, and to her, that the community is behind her, the community will support her, and we need individuals like her to be courageous enough to stand up, because it was courageous witnesses who stood up for George Floyd that made the greatest impact. And we stand with her today and to her attorneys and let her know that the community is with her. We will continue to fight for her because she has the truth in her eyes, she has the truth in her mouth, and she has continually stand up for Winston, and we stand for Winston Smith. Enough is enough. The judicious killing of black people in this country by our tax dollars will end, and we will make that happen by any means necessary.
Good afternoon. My name is Michelle Gross, M-I-C-H-E-L-L-E, G-R-O-S-S, and I'm president of Communities United Against Police Brutality. Our organization was utterly appalled when we learned of the death of Winston Smith. He had actually been to our organization in 2017, he and his then girlfriend, to tell us that they were being harassed by police, and we had done some things to assist them in getting data on who their harassers were and doing other things to try to give them strength to overcome that harassment. So, of course, we were devastated when we learned about the death of Winston Smith. But now we learn that he was killed over a cell phone. And now we learn that the BCA has once again botched an investigation willfully to cover for police. Our organization engages in reinvestigations of police killings. We did a thorough reinvestigation, for example, of the Thurman Blevins killing, where police claimed that he shot a gun. Although his body, his hands were covered with paper bags and enabling them to test his hands for gunshot residue, this never happened. It didn't happen at the medical examiner's office, and it didn't happen by the BCA. Yet they wanted to make a claim that he fired a gun at police. All of the evidence in that case proves otherwise, and I suspect the same will happen here. In fact, the BCA went so far in the Thurman Blevins case as to release a video claiming a gun, and then when we took that video, some Hollywood enhanced video, and broke it down frame by frame and compared it to the original video, what we saw was that what the BCA claimed was a gun and put a red circle around was in fact the silver bumper and hubcap of a plumbing truck in the distance. So these are the kinds of lies that come out of the BCA to cover for police. And they don't do the testing that they know will show that the cops are culpable. They don't do it. I don't believe for a minute that there aren't videos at that garage. In fact, I know there were. From individuals who got in contact with us, we know that there were films in those garages, in that garage. We don't believe it for a minute. There's not a garage, parking ramp anywhere in the city that doesn't have plenty of videos. So we're not believing these lies. We stand with this witness. We stand with the family of Winston Smith, and we demand justice now. And justice looks like getting the BCA out of this so-called phony investigation they're doing. What is the BCA doing investigating a federal incident? But beyond that, they have no end of conflicts. They need to be out of this. They need to stop being the investigatory body, and we need an independent investigator and an independent prosecution. Nothing less will do. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jonathan McClellan. I'm president of the Minnesota Justice Coalition. We are here standing in solidarity with the family of Winston Smith, as well as the witness who was in the car as well. I only can describe what's happening in one word: cover up. If it looks like a duck, sounds like a duck, it's a duck. And that's what we have here. This investigation needs to be taken over by an independent agency. I want to echo everything that everybody else has said over here. This is disgusting here in Minnesota that once again the families have come out beforehand and said that this has happened in prior cases where people have lost their lives to police violence. And here we are, we're witnessing it live, a cover-up. And we have to sit over here and do better. The community needs to come out and demand that this video or be released. We do believe there is a video. There is a camera at the top of the stairs of that garage. And the fact that they come out and say there is no video, it's a cover-up. There's nothing else that we can say. So we're here to stand in support of the family. We're here to stand in support and demand accountability and transparency and justice for Winston Smith.
My name is Zainab Mohammed, Z-A-Y-N-A-B M-O-H-A-M-E-D, and I'm the Community Advocacy Manager for the Council on Islamic American Relations. I, first of all, want to say it doesn't matter what Winston Smith did. It does not matter what his record looks like. Nothing justifies him being murdered on broad daylight and not knowing why. I cannot imagine what that young lady is going through and having to watch her friend be murdered in front of her eyes, and then poof, it's like gone. It's like it never happened. Nobody talks about it. We ask these law enforcements to like keep us safe. Instead, they kill us and don't even justify it. I think it's important that we remember in the case of George Floyd, the cover-up that was gonna happen. And it took, like Jaylani said, witnesses to be able to speak up. Same thing happened to Dalal Eid. That was a cover-up. And if you know anything about the case with Winston Smith, he spoke about what happened to Dalal Eid. And a few weeks later, he gets shot dead on broad daylight, and we don't know why. So it's important that we hold these law enforcement accountable. So we stand here, I stand here with all of these community leaders and the attorneys who are representing these young ladies and say, it's time that we get transparency, accountability, and justice.
Hi, I'm Billie Jean Van Knight, Billie Jean Vanknight. My mama always told us, never do anything that we had to hide our face for. It's simple. If you believe in what you're doing, you don't have to hide your face. We consistently see these cover-ups. We see the police hiding things from us because they realize that what they did is wrong. You do not have to hide if you believe in what you're doing. Winston Smith should not have died. No matter what he did, if he did anything, we can arrest people without killing them, no matter what crime he is accused of. And our Constitution says you are innocent until proven guilty. You should not be killed trying to be apprehended before you get your day in court, before you are innocent until proven guilty. We should know what happened to Winston Smith. We need them to prove that they did nothing wrong by not hiding their face and showing the videos that we know that they have. And if they believe that the killing of Winston Smith was justified, they need to show us the video, point out what they feel is justified, so we all can have the same information that they do. Over and over again, we see that witnesses and people who are filming on the streets have to show what is actually happening because the police are not willing to show their face. Over and over again. It's one of the most simple things. Don't do anything you have to hide your face for.
Well, Maya, what you're speaking to is the fact that there are still many more questions than answers. We have reached out to the U.S. Attorney's Office. They actually contacted us after we sent a letter to Governor Walz raising our concerns about the conduct of the U.S. Marshals, their recruitment processes for officers who participate in the program, the lack of transparency, the lack of body camera footage, etc. Governor Walz claims that he contacted Washington, D.C., and he didn't get answers. That is completely unacceptable, especially if he is still allowing Minnesota law enforcement officers to participate in the Marshals program. We think that it is absolutely unconscionable that police officers would pull up behind Winston Smith after his lunch date, not announce themselves in unmarked vehicles, and pull guns on him. We have seen these kinds of things happen time and time again, as was mentioned earlier with Dalal Eid, a very similar situation. And these officers do not care about endangering the public. They're doing this out in the open, and they're getting away with it. So Governor Walz has to step up to the plate and be accountable for the conduct of Minnesota law enforcement officers. How is he turning over accountability to the federal government, allowing them to recruit Minnesota law enforcement agents and then saying, I'm not getting any answers? Well, it's time to withdraw all Minnesota law enforcement agents from that program and to demand answers and to provide answers to the public, just as we saw him do every day during COVID-19. We're dealing with our own pandemic in the black community of police officers being able to kill us and get away with it. And just like Christopher said, not this time. The family of Winston Smith, his children had to spend Father's Day without him because of these kinds of brutal tactics and abuse of power that we are witnessing time and time again. And the last thing that I'll say is a report came out recently regarding the execution of Terrence Franklin, a black man who was killed in Minneapolis in 2013 shot in the head multiple times by multiple officers who told multiple lies about what happened. Mike Freeman failed to hold a single officer accountable for killing Terrence Franklin. The Minneapolis Police Department was allowed to investigate itself. And now that the federal government, the DOJ, is coming to town to investigate the Minneapolis Police Department, suddenly Mike Freeman decides to try to cover his ass by asking the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension to investigate that case. He knows that there is blood on his hands, just as there is in multiple cases like what happened with Winston Smith and Terrence Franklin. And so the BCA, again, is not a credible agency to investigate killings at the hands of police officers. This case needs to be removed from their hands immediately. And as a state agency, Governor Walz has the power to remove the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension from further investigation of the murder of Winston Smith. We don't trust the BCA, nor are they qualified or competent at investigating situations and when police kill people. And we are expecting the reopening of the killing of Terrence Franklin as well. That needs to have happened yesterday.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Oh, is there I am not.
Sorry.
Are you
Yeah. I do a lot of work with the racial justice.
oh,
Yeah.
thank you.
Oh, Jesus, it's always something. Like,